Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I was just wondering.
The last session now.
Last session, yeah. Hi, Rituraj.
Am I audible?
Yes, it's loud and clear.
Good. Hi. How you both are?
Good.
Okay.
So I think you know the instructions, right? You can share your screen with the third button. And how about the time check? You want us to give you a time check, or you're okay?
I think I would need to rush a bit towards the end, so it would be good if you can give me a time check.
Okay, so you want us to on our videos to give you an indication that we are like 15 minutes.
Yeah, that would do.
So by 8, we would come online.
Yeah.
We would on our videos, and we would probably reserve the last 15 minutes for questions.
Okay.
So we'll have around 45 minutes to talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me try to present my screen so that you can just confirm that we're able to see my screen or not. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Your entire screen. I need to select the checkbox as well, like share the audio.
Yes.
Share. Is it visible?
Yes.
It's loading. Yes, now it is.
Slides?
Yep.
Yeah, we can see your slides.
Cool. Okay.
No, it's the next one.
There is echo, Rituraj.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's stopped.
Yeah, it was for a minute, yeah.
We have people starting to join us. See, around 5 already joined the session.
And yeah, still we have 1 minute. Yeah.
Okay. Shall we start? Okay. Hi all, welcome to the session. We have Rituraj with us. Rituraj is an agile coach, scrum master, and a project manager. He has a vast experience and, of course, a lot of certifications in his kitty. His contribution to the various organizations he worked with makes him a good entrepreneur. I think it's a very interesting word, entrepreneur, Rituraj. Let's hear from you on what is it all about, and over to you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much, Vijaya. And let me get back to my presentation straightforward without losing a second's time. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, I would like to give a big thanks to Scrum Alliance as well as Regional Scrum Gathering Hyderabad 2020 for providing me this wonderful opportunity to be a part of this event. We were supposed to have this event initially in person in Hyderabad in the month of June, but because of this pandemic, as you all know, that we are doing it remotely. And then I would also like to give a big thanks to all the participants who are spending their valuable and precious time. Instead of spending this time with their family, they are learning the things throughout the last 3 days, 2 to 3 days. And today I'm going to present this topic, strategic intrapreneurship for tomorrow's agile leadership. Before I start with today's session, you guys can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. I'm very much active on LinkedIn. Bit busy these days because I'm writing a book, my own book. So I'm an aspiring author also. That's what I can say. So the book is something related to agile and DevOps, and hopefully by the start of next year, early next year, I will be releasing the book. So let's get into the topic, strategic entrepreneurship for tomorrow's agile leadership. Okay. So as the world faces unprecedented times these days, the global landscape is changing and businesses must tackle the novel challenges. There is a growing uncertainty and the landscape is changing. There are disrupted markets, as we all see. There is a constant change required for the organizations to champion off the wall thinking, to transform and adapt the future ways of working. And since because of this COVID-19 pandemic, along with the VUCA world, volatility, ambiguity, uncertainty, and complex world, uh, and the pandemic, the recent pandemic, we are into this new normal. That's what we are saying, where the broader landscape change has been influenced by factors, including artificial intelligence, automation of work, and most recently the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. So these elements are forming a perfect storm where businesses need to adapt and to remain competitive. So what is more important is like this adaptation has been accelerated significantly by the COVID-19 pandemic. So I got to share these interesting insights from International Monetary Fund, where they are saying that almost $9 trillion of estimated reduction in the global GDP. That's what they are expecting over next 20 months. So there is going to be a cumulative output loss of $9 trillion USD. Another interesting insight from McKinsey, where they are saying that 800 million people uh, or the jobs associated with those people are going to be potentially displaced by the adoption of automation and artificial intelligence. And that is something which is triggering it out to be the result of this pandemic. One more interesting insight from Forrester, where they are saying that 9.6% expected decline in the global retail sales. So there is going to be a loss of almost $2.1 trillion globally. One more interesting insight from World Bank, where they are saying that most countries are expected to face the recessions in 2020. And I was having a word with one of my friends who is there in Ireland working with Deloitte Consulting, and he told me that it's not only limited to 2020. 2021 is also going to be like a roller coaster ride for us in terms of recession. One final insight related to the pandemic and its impact on global trade. So according to World Trade Organization, the world trade is expected to trail by like the fall by between 13 to 32% because of the pandemic. So we know that we are living into the VUCA world and pandemic is hitting us so hard. Whether it's embracing remote working to build the collaborative teams using technology to predict our future obstacles, or recognizing our corporate structure to foster a culture of innovation and creativity, organizations need to promote entrepreneurship within the organizations. That's what I'm saying. So I was doing a quick Google search and then I searched for world's best entrepreneurs and I got this list of people appearing. There are a couple of names which you could see it here. Along with this thing, I got to know about one recent news on 18th of August 2020, where Tech Mahindra, one of the biggest MNCs and software services providers from India, they have launched an upskilling as a service platform to enhance the employee competencies, especially the entrepreneurship within the organization. So it's like a platform as a service, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and there is no one more thing which is coming up in the industry, which is like upskilling as a service. On 10th of September 2020, I read one more news from Salesforce where they said that around $240,000 they are going to spend to upskill the digital skills and to promote the entrepreneurship within the organizations by launching some innovative projects. So that was the initiative which has been taken by Salesforce recently in the month of September only. So according to the formal CEOs of Google, the first two persons which you are able to see, who are the true entrepreneurs of today's world, according to them, they are thinking that businesses need to upskill their workforce with entrepreneurial skills, and so that they can thrive in a continuously changing world. With over 600 million entrepreneurs are expected to be present in the world somewhere down the line. That's what they are saying. And entrepreneurship, what is entrepreneurship? It is basically an activity to start up a business or set up businesses, taking some financial risks, and we have a hope to gain some profit. So that's what entrepreneurship is. On the other side, intrapreneurship is somehow similar to entrepreneurship, but by the bookish definition, dictionary definition, intrapreneur is nothing but a manager or a leader within a company who promotes innovative product development and marketing. There is one more definition from Studio Zao, who are the pioneers when it comes to the intrapreneurship within the organization. So they are dealing with their customers, and then they are saying that creative problem solving skills, developing ambitious ideas to drive the progress of their organizations should be the single motto for the agile leaders who want to be intrapreneurs. Large organizations, they always have the organizational sizing issues, and they are so large that the leadership making decisions, they are often isolated. So from a personal knowledge of the problems to be solved, I mean to say, so the traditional answer to resolve that kind of organizational sizing issues and to do the isolated decision making, I think decentralization can be applied, but that's not only the alone solution. I would like to quote one Scrum value, which is like courage. So by the means of that value and by its original thought, I think it's an ability to observe obvious but overlooked facts and do not necessarily lead to success. So by applying this kind of a courageous thought and the decision-making mechanism, entrepreneurship plays a big role. And if you want to understand the differences in between entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship, intrapreneurs are nothing but the entrepreneurs within an organization. There is always a risk that intrapreneurs who are running their own businesses, if something goes wrong, you might have seen the example of Oyo Rooms, where because of this pandemic, there is a huge hit in terms of the business declination. So that's the reason there was a huge impact on their side, and then the whole business goes on to toss. Whereas for intrapreneurs, we have got the senior leadership to mentor us, to support us. And being an intrapreneur, even if a project gets failed, still it will appear into our company's accounts, consuming some budget, but we will have the lessons learned, and then using those lessons, we have a tendency to fail fast, learn fast, unlearn fast, relearn fast. So according to the psychological safety, that is the key difference in between entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. So that's the reason intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs, they are not much different. They have many qualities in common. However, when it comes to the concept of psychological safety, intrapreneurs are really safe according to their organizational structures. If you get a chance to go through this wonderful website, intrapreneur.com, it gives you some nice examples, case studies where you can get to know more about intrapreneurship. But in his one of the books, Gifford Pinchot, Intrapreneuring is the name of the book. He has given top 10 commandments. So this is for the today's agile leaders or tomorrow's agile leaders who want to be the intrapreneurs. So let's quickly go through these 10 commandments, and this is like a baseline. This is like a guideline or benchmark for all of us who want to be an intrapreneur within our organization to follow these values or commandments. Number 1, come to work each day willing to be fired. So we should have, as an intrapreneur, we should have zeal, enthusiasm coming to the work as if it is last working day for us. And we should always strive for excellence, always thinking about as if like it is like a last day for me where there are chances for me to get fired. Number 2, circumvent any orders aimed at stopping your dream. We need to find obstacles, we need to find the problems, and we need to find the ways or solutions to solve those problems, being an intrapreneur. Number 3, do any job needed to make your projects work regardless of your job description. So servant leadership is like lifting others. This particular point has got some relationship with the servant leadership style, where we are supposed to take the extra efforts to have the collaboration, to go beyond the limits. Find people to help you. Seeking for help, leading with influence, delegation with influence, and making use of the 4 C's of servant leadership: communication, cooperation, coordination, and communication. So that's the expectation out of this particular commandment. Following the intuition and inner voice based upon the process of empiricism. That's what I wanted to correlate the point number 5 with. To inspect and adapt the things around, establishing and promoting the consensus-based decision-making, and being a people's person. That's what is needed for oneself to be an intrapreneur. Work underground, as if you are working like a James Bond. Work like an undercover agent. You should have all those qualities, characteristics of servant leadership, like persuasion, active listening, getting the right foresight, stewardship, having empathy, healing, conceptualization, commitment of growth of your own people, and building the sense of community. So that's what is expected. Never bet on a race unless you are running into it. This is my personal favorite. Sometimes as agile leaders, as scrum masters, as agile coaches, as product managers, as product owners, as an RTE, we always have this kind of unnecessary poking, stalking kind of thing which goes on under the team's established agile way of working. We need to stop that. Be there only when it is needed, and we need to stop others also, because the stakeholders might have these kind of things going in the back of their mind, and they are also doing the same thing. So that's what we need to avoid. Remember, it is easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. This is again servant leadership instead of command and control kind of leadership style. Be true to your own goals, but be realistic about the ways to achieve them. So this is nothing but goals which need to be aligned with the relentless learning and relentless improvement, always able to see the bigger picture and systems thinking kind of way of working as an entrepreneur. The last point talks about honoring your sponsors. I will add to it, not only the sponsors, stakeholders also. You need to understand your stakeholders, you need to educate them, and you need to collaborate with them on a daily basis. In addition to these 10 commandments, Pinchot likes to add 6 more things. Asking for advice before asking for resources. So we do have this kind of tendency in being into that Scrum Master, Agile Coach kind of a role. We always jump into the conclusions before understanding what is causing a certain problem. Okay. And that too based upon our recent experiences or past experiences with our past teams. So we have the lessons learned, but even though we have the lack of experience, so if we don't have lack of experience, we don't have the subject matter expertise, it's always good to ask for their advice. Seek some help, take some guidance, take some support, and then senior leadership is always there to give you some inputs, pointers. So that's really important. Expressing the gratitude, having the sense of acknowledgement, appreciation, respect, empathy, that is really important. Building your team, intrapreneuring is not at all a solo activity. We need to build our teams, we need to nurture them, we need to establish the learning and knowledge sharing mechanisms in place to inculcate intrapreneurship within an organization, not only within ourselves, but with our team members also. Sharing credit widely. Probably I will like to give an example which I had seen through one of the videos. It was like a press conference where Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam was attending that press conference, and he shared this particular incident. So at that point of time, he was leading a mission to do the satellite launch vehicle under Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO. And then at that point of time, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai was heading ISRO. So some things went wrong, that mission got failed, and Dr. Abdul Kalam got shattered and then he got shocked to get to know about how come this happened. So he called Dr. Vikram Sarabhai and told him about the failure. Sarabhai told him that you're not supposed to attend the press conference, I will attend it. He appeared in front of the press and media, and then he took all the blame on his shoulders. He said to them that even if we have spent billions of dollars on this mission, we failed it, but we have got those lessons learned, and we will invest in ourselves to make sure that this won't happen again. We will give it as a second try. Great leader. Next time they did a second try, they succeeded. This time, when Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam got a call from Sarabhai, Sarabhai told him that you go ahead and attend the press conference. So when you are failing, taking all the blame, criticism on your shoulders, and when you are succeeding, you are putting others in front of the stage. That's what this point is all saying, that sharing the credit widely as well as wisely. Number 5 is like keeping the best interests of the company and customers in the mind. Customers as well as your associates, they both should be your priority. And the last thing is like, don't ask to be fired. Use your political skills. I would like to say it like, not only the political skills, but all your kind of skills, be it listening, be it negotiation, be it is stakeholder management, be it is having an empathy, having insight, having emotional intelligence. We need to muster to move the project forward without making the waves. These particular commandments I would like to correlate with the House of Lean from Scaled Agile framework, where they say that leadership forms the baseline. There is always a value at the top. There should be a respect for people and culture. There should be a continuous flow of business value throughout the system, processes, product, people. There should be a scope for innovation, and there should be relentless improvement. One good video I would like to show it to you. What you guys need to do is like, you need to see this video, and you can think about what is causing the hindrance here in this particular situation under this video. Guess it, and then later I will give you an answer using which you can correlate the things. So let me play this video. I hope the audio as well as video is visible to you.
All right, girls. Now, this is your last chance. If one piece of candy gets past you and into the packing room unwrapped, you're fired.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, this is easier. Yeah, we can handle this, okay? Listen, Ethel, I think this... I think we're fighting a losing game.
splendidly. Speed it up!
I hope you laughed as well as liked the video. I don't know whether you guys were able to see it properly or not. Can anyone confirm quickly? I hope so. It was breaking. Okay, no problem. Okay, so let me continue with the slide then. Okay, so I don't know whether you guys could able to correlate the concept with uh, what I was trying to show it to you through the concept of that particular video. So let me explain you the concept which I wanted to show it to you through this particular slide. So let's suppose that you have got a water bottle in your hand, and then you are holding that particular water bottle, and you are taking the lid off, and you are closing your one of the eyes and looking for the water from top to the bottom, like you are looking at the bottle from top to the bottom all the way through. So what you will be able to see is like the two circles, right? A narrow circle at the top and a wide circle at the bottom. So the narrow circle, the inner circle, represents your current potential, okay? Whereas the wide or the outer circle represents your future potential. And this looks like this. And if you are able to manage your workplace bottlenecks, so the term which I wanted to think about was like bottlenecks, which was causing some hindrance into that video. And if you're not managing your workplace bottlenecks, be it anything, inside your Scrum teams, inside your Agile teams, with managing the relationship with the stakeholders, if you're not managing your workplace bottlenecks, then you are underperforming. If you are achieving less than your current potential, if you are managing it, then you are achieving the potential. And if you are removing those bottlenecks, then you are expanding your potential. So you always need to remember and find out about where is our next bottleneck. And bottlenecks limit your outcomes. The willingness and action to remove your bottlenecks makes the key difference. So I was having a word with one of the guys. His name is Clark Ching. He's in New Zealand. So we saw this particular concept through that video, and then I wanted to share this video with you today because there are some bottlenecks with intrapreneurship also. You do have your chief idea killer sitting at the top of the organization who doesn't want you to be an intrapreneur. So we have seen the Pete Behrens latest session where he was also mentioning about the same thing. It needs to happen from bottom to top, because every time it is not possible for those people who are sitting at the top level, the C-level executives. But on the sarcasm side of it, the chief idea killer has VP of doing nothing, VP of status quo, and VP of stay to the course, who wants you to look forward, don't look here and there, don't innovate, don't create new things, always behave as if like horses wearing blinkers. The next set of thing is like director of onerous reporting, director of bureaucracy, director of rigidity, who don't want you to be agile. There is always a director of paralysis and analysis, and this particular position, which is like a director or a manager for innovation and creativity, that position always remains vacant. We hardly see any organizations where there is a specific position. Forget about the roles, but the responsibility side of it. We hardly see any organizations where there is a scope for innovation and there are specific people who are supposed to do the innovative things or drive the initiative of projects which are supposed to address the innovation or creativity part of it. One more great concept from Marta, where she explains about how people interact and how people respond to the change, and how much is the flexibility and interdependence in between all those things, considering the enjoyment, fun learning part of it, purpose, caring, order to make sure that they have the psychological safety, the sense of authority, accountability, responsibility, and ownership, along with driving the results and outcomes. And all these things are somehow correlated. And there is one more concept from Raja, which I have just seen, where he wants us to be an intrapreneur, to encourage the value-based leadership and courageous leadership, to shift it from vicious leadership to virtuous leadership, where things should be value-driven, there should be integrity, there should be optimism, universe or ecosystem, system level thinking focus to understand the big picture as well as to explain the big picture to the team members or the people with whom you are dealing with. There should be a sense of self-awareness, self-management. You should be result or outcome oriented. There should be a positive attitude, courage, openness, trust, transparency, emotional intelligence. So all these skills we need to inculcate as an entrepreneur. In strategic entrepreneurship, why? We need to understand the why. So I was reading one of the case studies from one of the insurance providers from UK, and the CEO of that particular company seems to be like an entrepreneur for me, because he wanted to innovate, do some experimentation to get themselves aligned with strategic roadmap, adapting the challenges around. And he make use of the DISC assessment published by Willie. Into that white paper, I read it out that they need to have the right sense of dominance. They means to say like the agile leaders, tomorrow's agile leaders, they need to have the sense of those DISC assessments using which you can understand your own personality as well as you can understand the personality of others with whom you are working with. So a dominant person is always like having a behavior where he would like to see the big picture. He can be blunt, straightforward sometimes. Influence kind of a personality, always shows the enthusiasm, always optimistic about the things, likes to collaborate. When it comes to steadiness, it's all about person placing emphasis on cooperation, keep calm manner kind of a person. And when it comes to the consciousness, that is the compliance side of it, the behavior which we could observe within ourselves as well as within others is like they enjoy the independence. They are like objective reasoning kind of people who always have the willingness to learn more, and there is always a fears of being wrong. So using this kind of assessment, you can understand, you can get an awareness about yourself as well as others. And there was one good insight from the Business Agility Report 2019, where there was a negative feedback on the left side, but there was a recommendation to avoid that negativity, to make sure that we as entrepreneurs or tomorrow's agile leaders, we need to be mindful of our own leadership style, because we will show it up in front of others, and that will make a difference somewhere down the line. Entrepreneurship, how to succeed. So being an entrepreneur and tomorrow's agile leader, we need to encourage the associates to change the way they think. Similar to the startups, we need to find out our own mentors as well as advisors. We need to get hold of the responsibility with self-sufficiency to make sure that we know the things thoroughly. And when there are large companies, eventually giving entrepreneurs the autonomy and the resources to drive into some new ventures inside the organization, the corporate entrepreneurs can realize their entrepreneurial ambitions also. So being associated with an organization won't allow me to start my own business as an entrepreneur, but I can explore my full potential to be an entrepreneur while being a part of that organization. That's what it is saying. We should have the craft and sense making to the core. We should talk the sense always. We should have the passion. We should get the freedom. And the most important thing is like innovation culture, which I'm going to cover it in the next slide. The typical capabilities for tomorrow's agile leaders are nothing but the mental strength. We need to be the good storytellers. We need to have the knowledge, thorough knowledge about our business, functional, technical, all the sides of it. And we should be active listeners. This active listening was covered by Roman Pichler during his keynote on the first day itself. The strategic entrepreneurship is all about two things: innovation and experimentation. When it comes to innovation, we talk about four types of innovation. First one is technology, second one is cumulative, third one is essential, and fourth one is disruptive. When it comes to the technology based innovation, you might have seen the examples like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, even this platform only on which we are hosting this conference right now, Hopin platform. Great technology innovations because of which we can treat this pandemic as a new normal and we can continue ahead with our remote working stuff. When it comes to cumulative innovation, it is like incremental innovation. You have some baseline defined and you are building something on top of it. So the organization where I currently work for, it is a manufacturing organization, typically into food and beverages based customers, where we provide them packaging and processing solution offerings. So we are deriving an Industry 4.0 initiative under which we are making use of IoT. So the filling machines using which those cartons or packages are getting filled in for our customers, we have installed the conditional monitoring kits on the filling machines who are supposed to read the signals out of those machines using the sensors. And using that particular mechanism, we will be able to predict as well as prevent the system's downtime. So think of a customer like Amul, who needs to fill in milk inside those containers, packaged paper containers. Milk is a perishable item, and if we give them this kind of a cumulative innovation to make sure that the machine and the sensors will trigger some alarms using which they will identify that if certain thing is not working, if the temperature, pressure, viscosity of the fluid, or the gear is not rotating as per the expected benchmark 2000 rotations per minute. So they have the baseline defined and we are doing some cumulative innovation using which there will be an assurance given to our customers to make sure that there will be zero downtime. Essential innovation is like one step behind, like you need to have the things which are essential in front of you in terms of your business. When it comes to disruptive, I think I was reading one of the white papers from a company named as Drua. So they are like 10 years old startup, mainly dealing with cloud, backup data storage, security. But they are releasing patents on a day-to-day basis and they are really creating some disruptions into the market. Right now, they are like $1 billion startup. In terms of its market value, and they are acting as a big disruptors in terms of the innovations which they are performing into the market right now, which is acting as a threat for big companies like Veritas, Symantec, cloud providers like Dell EMC and everything. Experimentation side of it being a part of strategic entrepreneurship, which we would like to try it out. I will be covering into the next slide. But these are a few interesting insights from Microsoft Stories Asia. We have seen the first slide where it was talking about the negative side of the world, but there are a few positive sides also which we want to focus upon in these tough times, where according to these stories, it is saying that since COVID-19, 74% of organizations have found that innovation have to be critical or important for their performance and for their resilience. Organizations with a mature culture of innovation are more resilient to recover and faster. 1/3 of the leaders expect to increase their market share despite of the pandemic, since they are promoting the culture of innovation as well as experimentation. And 45% of the leaders believe that their organizations will be able to recover from the impact of COVID-19 in 6 months or less. So we have some good times ahead. That's what we can hope for if we focus upon the innovation and experimentation part of strategic entrepreneurship. Talking about the mindset and creativity, there is a good book from Vijay Govindarajan which talks about the 3-box solution. So being a product manager, being a product owner, we need to manage the present to optimize the current business. We need to forget the past and we need to create the future to invent a new business model. Talking about the ideation part of it, which is nothing but the strategy. There is one more book inside the box from Drew Boyd and Jacob Goldenberg, where they talk about ideation part of innovation. You need to look for a situation, you need to sense the situation, you need to observe the situation, apply some thinking tools, simulate the situation, and then think about, should we do it to provide some solutions to improve that situation, how we can do it, so that the implementation part gets covered, and then we adapt accordingly. It is somehow has its relation with the process of empiricism, where we inspect and adapt continuously. That gives you a ideation side of it. And combining the design thinking, lean startup, and agile. That's the most favorite part of mine in terms of the execution part of failing fast, learn, unlearn, and relearn. So you have got the problem solving phase and execution and solution phase. You need to apply the design thinking skills to empathize the user's problems, to ideate those things, do some POCs, do some MVPs, learn out of it, continuously iterate, build it, measure it. As a product team, we know that which all areas are being used by the users, which all areas are not getting used, which all areas are mostly getting used, rarely getting used. And then based upon all those analysis and implementations or experimentations, hypothesis validations, you can jump into the execution and solution phase by making use of Scrum or any such framework. You can have the product backlog ready with business value optimized, continuously evolving. Go ahead, complete the sprint execution cycle, do the review, do the retrospective. Continuous feedback. This is the most important thing which we tend to forget, but engaging your stakeholders, engaging your teams, as well as the people who are responsible, accountable, and having an ownership in terms of getting into the business. You need to have the right sense of engagement to establish the collaboration and to get the expected outcomes. I think this is the most important part, where you need to have the feedback loops open, transparent, to make sure that you are getting the feedbacks from your customers, your vendors, your suppliers, from your stakeholders, sponsors, from everywhere. And this also gives the motivation for your own teams to make sure that the feedback is getting addressed, because feedback is all about how you can improve further. There is a wonderful model, situation behavior in impact model, which can be used to address the feedback. So situation, you need to understand the situation. You need to look at your own behavior, and then you need to look for the action items. So this concept, again, you can correlate with the sprint retrospectives, where at the end of the sprint, you analyze the situation, what went well, what went wrong, what are the things where you need to improve, what was your behavior, are there any processes where you need to improve, are there any people aspects where you need to improve. So that's the behavioral side of it. And once you know that what you need to improve upon, you think about the impact. If we do it in this way, what could be the impact? If we do it in that way, what could be the impact? And then based upon that, we define the action items, and then making use of the feedback from all the way, I think we can go ahead and look for the continuous learning, continuous improvement part of it. There is one more good video which shows about various aspects of strengthening the strategic entrepreneurship. I don't know how much time is left, but it is like a 2 minutes video. So I would like to quickly play it for all of you.
Emotional intelligence refers to the ability to recognize, interpret, and process emotions in yourself and others. While genetics, upbringing, and environment all play a role, there are steps you can take to develop your emotional intelligence over time. Get to know yourself. Emotionally intelligent people are self-aware. They have a realistic appreciation of their strengths and weaknesses, and how they come across to others. Peer feedback is one way of improving your self-awareness, and may uncover a few of your emotional blind spots. Learn your triggers. Linked to the notion of self-awareness is knowing how you are likely to respond in particular situations. Think about how you felt the last time you were under pressure. Did these feelings help or hinder you? Recognizing emotions and the source of these emotions can shift your emotional state. Empathize. Seeing things from someone else's perspective will help you understand their values and beliefs. This is important when it comes to motivating and engaging others. Make a conscious effort to get to know your colleagues. Ask open questions and actively listen to what they have to say, rather than simply waiting for your turn to speak. Be on the lookout for body language and other non-verbal signs, as these may tell you more than someone is willing to express out loud. Own your emotions. Part of being emotionally intelligent is about taking responsibility for the way you interact with others. If someone upsets you, pause and reflect on why their actions led you to feel this way, instead of reacting impulsively. Recognize that a conversation is a two-way interaction, and it takes two people to make you angry, sad, or frustrated. Go with your gut. Finally, listen to your body. If your stomach starts doing backflips every time you speak to a senior manager, or your muscles tense up before you go into a meeting, what does this tell you? Counterintuitive as it might seem, emotions can be a valuable source of information when making rational decisions at work. Remember, emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about learning how to recognize, process, and channel them in a way that benefits you and your team. Enhancing your emotional intelligence requires effort, but it can be achieved with sustained practice.
Okay, so that was it, and I hope that I was on time. Sorry, Shipra, if you're speaking, then I think you're on mute.
Shipra? Okay, let me take it forward as Shipra figures that out. Any questions, team? I did not see any questions in the chat window. Okay, we have one right now, Rituraj. How to start lead agile transformation where top leaders don't take ownership and always push mid-level managers for successful implementation of agile.
Yeah, so a really good question. Even we also face it on a daily basis where typically the senior leadership is a great fan of waterfallish way of doing the things. And when it comes to agile, I think they are a bit resilient. They are like restricting themselves to understand like what are the advantages of agile way of working, and making use of any way of working which makes use of the agile values and principles, and that drives into establishment of a simple, nimble, agile way of working to be established within the teams. So I think one good way to do it is like again so you can try it out with your few teams, and then you can give it as a try if you want to give them some results. You can define some OKR, objective and key results. If you want to get the right sense of leadership buy-in, then you need to try it out as an experiment with few of your teams, and then it again remains with us only. Being middle managers, we can try it out the things using the experimentation, hypothesis validation, and if it triggers, then it becomes easy to give it as an example to our senior leadership. So that is the one side of it. The second side of it is like as it was said by Pete, it needs to start from top to down. So sometimes they know the things theoretically, but they haven't seen the things practically. So we started an initiative called as Change Lab, where anyone from the organization can come to us, explain their problem, and then we will try to make the ideation, experimentation, and innovation side of it to make sure that by making use of the suitable agile framework, how they can start being agile, not just doing agile. So that's how I think leadership is always concerned about the budget and dollar value side of it. But once they get to know about the wonderful things which are happening inside the organization, be it an initiative like Change Lab, be it an initiative like Hackathon, they get to see the people on the floor where people are doing wonderful job. And looking at those things, probably if we try it out, all those things, then it will really make a difference. Again, the changes will not happen over one night. You need to spend more time and you need to get yourself aligned so that you need to understand the expectations from the senior leadership, like what they want to say. And then probably we can also engage them with the various trainings and there are some good books like Scrum Mastery from Geoff Watts or Doing Agile Right. So you can give them some education through those books where you can increase their sense of understanding the things practically.
Good insights, Raj. We have one more question. Most of the time, my ideas are rejected by my immediate manager. If I talk to one level above, they are saying I am bypassing. How do I handle this?
Okay, so I would like to give the answer, again, a good question. I would like to answer this question by following the 5 Scrum values. Openness is not only limited to the Scrum team members or us being the leaders of those teams representing the servant leadership side of it. It should be on both the sides. It should not be a one-way communication. The courage to have those ideas circulated within your organization, especially in front of your senior leadership, and the courage made from their side to allocate some budget to try out those things. That is also one more important thing. So openness, courage is like one side of it. The other side of it is like most of the times, the typical leadership is always concerned about how they are getting better returns on their investments in terms of their direct businesses. So I was going back to my one of the slides where those 3 boxes where the leadership can think about their existing businesses as well as by making use of ideation and innovation, they can explore certain other areas. So the example which I gave it was like making use of IoT or making use of data science to make sure that these kind of ideations, these kind of innovations, these kind of creativity-based enablers will make sure that you're getting your return on investment. Because when we go to the leadership and we try to explain them such kind of ideas, they always focus upon the return on investment value of it. So if you're doing some cost cutting by doing some ideation innovation, if you are better at generating more revenues, or if you are doing certain things innovatively which will make the people grow, learn, continuously improve, that kind of foresight, persuasion, leader needs to have. And that's why I think servant leadership and the characteristics of servant leadership are not only applicable for Scrum Masters, even at the CEO level, those things will make a big difference if it gets circulated from top down. Yeah.
True. Thanks, Rituraj. Think that is all on the questions. There was one more person. Yeah. Thank you, Rituraj. It was a very insightful session. I'm sure many people in the chat as well are mentioning the same. Thank you very much. Participants, we have the polls open. Ensure you give your feedback on the poll. And see you soon in the closing. Yeah. Thanks, Rituraj. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.